Warm greetings to everyone. Let us proceed now to the chapter 4 of this course. I am Loyd Defensor, the reporter of Group 4. Our topic encompasses the identification and creation of strategy, which pertains to the creation and maintenance of competitive advantage. This presentation is prepared by Joyce Aves, Kezha Calderon, yours truly, Ellaine Melencio, and Louie Patron. To begin, let us define first what is planning. Planning can be associated with different aspects of life, but its core definition is to make a plan of something or designing activities necessary to achieve a certain goal. In an organization, planning can be described simply as a thinking process that promotes targeted build. This can be the conclusion of the project, program, or method for a particular purpose or to achieve the result. The strategy is the organization's management plan, which is required for the selected goals and objectives. It contains the tools and techniques needed for the organization purposes and objectives. With the significance of planning and designing the organization's strategy, it is important to know further about it in 8 steps. Step 1. Planning is an initiation process. This means that it does not occur naturally. In an organization, planning is initiated by the senior executives, giving direction to the subordinates to make plans, which specify a higher level plan. Planning can begin as well at the operational staff without direct superiors, when they diagnose opportunities or threats directly related to their functions. Step 2. The planning assumptions. Planning assumptions is related to the future situations in which the plan is realized, which is the evaluation. These assumptions may include both the internal and external environment. In the formation of an action plan, it is not possible to evaluate all of the internal and external factors that may affect the future plan. A definition of the planning assumptions focuses on the most important factors that can determine the success or failure of the plan. Step 3. The formulation of objectives. Objectives are intended to describe specifically what is to be achieved and define the follow-up course selection. This is done in order for the company to focus its strategy in achieving a specific goal. Step 4. The identification of alternatives. In this step, it is important to identify alternative ways of ensuring the defined objectives. It is always recommended to highlight an alternative that is not directly visible. However, already at this step, it is advisable to reject obviously bad alternatives that would save time in the alternatives analysis phase. Next is Step 5, which is the evaluation of alternatives. In this step, each alternative is analyzed in an effort to assess the weakness and strengths according to the formulated goals and planning assumptions. Step 6. The selection of best alternative. Now that the organization have evaluated the alternatives, it must now select the best alternatives it will apply. In this step, the final decision is made on the best options to ensure the defined goals. The quality of the solution depends on how carefully the earlier steps were carried out. For Step 7, the creation of supporting plans is important. If the plan is approved, it is necessary to develop a derivative or detailed support plans and a specific general plan. Each supporting plan is initiated with the creation of a new planning cycle covering all described steps in the planning process. Step 8. The general and supporting plans. These are supplementary budget plans on the basis of allocation of financial resources and provide the basis for the implementation of plans. Lastly, Step 9. The implementation of the plan. Implementing of the plan can be realized through other management functions such as the organization, management, and control. Now, we will discuss about the strategic planning. According to Palubinskas, strategic planning is the problem-solving process in order to adapt the organization to its future environment. This is the process by which it is necessary to anticipate events and to decide what is possible and necessary to make the organization and take advantage of opportunities to benefit and protect itself from everything that hinders the success and survival of the threatened. It is a high-level management process undertaken to identify and approve the framework, vision, long-term goals, directions, and objectives of a business company and serves as a foundation for the development of tactical plans and solutions to achieve desired entrepreneurial intentions and commercial benefits. Vasiliauskas argued that strategic planning is treated as a formal planning system to develop and implement strategies for dealing with the organization's mission and goals. Strategic planning does not change the strategic management, but it formalizes some organizations. Strategic management process is not only limited to formalization strategy development stage, but also includes the other two phases, strategic analysis and strategy. Combining the strategic management process and stages of the strategic planning process steps shows that the strategic analysis is consistent with a certain sense of planning assumptions definition. Next is the importance of planning. There are two importance of planning. These are first, it keeps the organization in the market. Developing a strategic plan is influenced not only by the actions, but also by the products or services they sell, even their popularity, so that for organizations operating in a market economy, it is essential to predict events and potential risk factors and to determine what are the minimum steps for each organization, which is gaining a market advantage over the competition. And second, it develops the organization. It is also important to be able to react in time to the existence of new market requirements. Therefore, the organization, in order to successfully pursue its own objectives, needs to have their own successful strategy. Changes faced by organizations today are happening faster and are more sophisticated. Before the formation of organizational strategy, there are necessary steps to be performed. A strategic design must be strictly and precisely defined in order to determine the best strategy for the organization or its alternative. So before the formation of the organization's strategy, it is necessary to perform the following steps. A. The organization of strong and weak features, options, and hazard analysis. This is in order to identify the aspects that the company lacks so that it knows how to approach these features. B. The organization must identify the success factors of the given operation. This is to know how much improvement the operation needs. C. The organization of special properties which make it a competitive advantage in the setting. And lastly, D. The management and orientation values of social responsibility clarification. All those mentioned in the strategic design phases and tasks are found in the analysis of strategic concepts and methodologies. The strategy development process is a reflection and thinking rather than activities. The head of the organization has overall responsibility for the strategy, and all the strategy procedures should be as simple as possible for all to understand. Otherwise, it would be a favor and fulfilled. We will now move to the elements of strategy development, which includes objectives, mission, and vision. First, objective. According to Formisano 2003, objectives of the organization are measured by qualitative and quantitative indicators, define its tasks, which are to be executed over a period of time. The purpose is to state what the organization is trying to achieve. Thus, the objectives of the organization become an important part of the process of strategic management only when the top-level executives formulate them correctly and purposefully, effectively institutionalize them, inform employees about these goals, and encourage their implementation in the organization. Second is mission. As stated by Olson 2004, mission is one or a few sentences that outlines the organization's main purpose of existence and the meaning of its operations. Otherwise, it can be said that the mission is the main goal, which is based on the key messages of the organization's purpose, competence, and its place in the world. Now, the mission and the objectives of the organization differs in the following respects. A. The organization's objectives are to be achieved through the precise time, and mission time is mentioned rarely and only in a non-specific form. And B. organization's goals are generally quantifiable, and the mission is defined as a higher level of benefits that has no quantitative measurements. The organization's objectives should be formulated in accordance with the organization's mission, and they have to be given in precise indications for defining the objectives of performance evaluation, as well as the objectives to be consistent. As such, they must be compatible with each other's views. Additional information from Morgan and co-authors 2008. It is important to remember that the organization's strategic objectives can be fruitful only in the implementation of these conditions. A. If they are measurable and have a clear and specific objective to assess the basis for decisions, and if they have a time limit, which, if indicated, to the time required to implement the goal. Third, vision. According to Mintzberg, Alstrand, and Lampiel, 2010, vision is a deliberately generalized perception and understanding of when, where, and how the organization will compete with its rivals in the future. This means that it is a more generalized perspective of the organization. Now, the next thing we will talk through is the competitive advantage, which refers to the factors that allow a company to produce goods or services better or cheaper than its rivals. These factors allow the productive entity to generate more sales or superior margins compared to its market rivals. Creating and maintaining a competitive advantage is the long-term success of the organization. However, the organization must constantly strive to maintain a competitive edge, adapting to changing environmental conditions, skills, and resources. In each organization wishing to achieve a long-term competitive advantage, strategic management must be fully developed using a dynamic and innovative resource-based model, unique to each organization. Unique intangible resources must be identified that could be used in developing a long-term competitive advantage. Each organization is intending to survive and compete in the market as long as possible. These days, low price, high quality, good service, and other traditional competitive strategies are in the market every day. But these strategies are insufficient to establish and maintain a long-term competitive advantage. Thus, we may know that it is indeed a long-term competitive advantage if it has the attributes of being valuable, being rare, cannot be perfectly imitated, and being ideal. As might be expected, achieving this long-term competitive advantage requires the use of competitive strategies. The characteristics of those competitive strategies being used are the following. First is the value. The organization is selling products or services to provide the added value for customers and not only to perform its main function. Second is the time and mobility. Quick decision making is particularly important. Next is using a user needs analysis as a basis for decision making. It can respond quickly to changing market demand, consumer provisions. Next is the knowledge and intellectual property. Ideas and information are the main forces used in establishing the uniqueness of the strategy. The fifth one is flexibility. For an extremely high competition in the market, organizations need to lead extremely quickly to show initiative, to be able to switch quickly and use the minimum amount of resources. Sixth is innovation. Continuous improvements of the product or service, business operations, processes, organization, becoming one of the key factors in creating a greater value for the consumer. And the last characteristic is the size of the organization. It is not as important as the others, however, it becomes much more important to be fast and innovative. Organization techniques as a means to protect them from the strategies, resources, capacity simulation examined in detail by Yi-Pei Lee, Yu Yuan Tai allows to develop simulation techniques by which competitors cannot easily and quickly simulate the organization to the strategy or competitive advantage. Competitors may be easy to imitate, replicate the organization to resources, capabilities, strategies such as production allocation databases, product design and distribution channels. However, for the use of an effective protection against competitors, simulation technique was developed in a unique way which shows how an organization uses its resources, capabilities, and strategies, and it severely reduces these risks. There are two main anti-simulation techniques that are identified as individual because the implementation of each of them uses a different strategic orientation. First one is the competing protecting equipment, and the second one is the safeguarding of consumer-oriented technology. Competing protecting technique is used to reduce the possibility of competitors to imitate and use competitive tools. It is emphasized that the use of this technique requires the management to have a particularly good understanding of the market in terms of the competition. Competing technique is used to protect these facilities. The innovation-oriented capabilities show that the organization, which first uses some technological innovation as a means to compete, gains a strong competitive advantage. While competitors may imitate and then copy these technologies, constant orientation to innovation will enable the organization to maintain this competitive advantage. Speed adaptation shows that the organization quickly adjusts to changing market conditions, as well as the first in the market to acquire a competitive edge using an exclusive, leading to early market dominance, better market knowledge, valuable resources, and cost advantages that create an exceptional competitive strategy. Market capacity shows that the organization can offer such products on the market, which are the most needed. There is the greatest demand and the differentiation of their products, creating a product or service brand stronger, and it may increase the prices of goods or services. Protecting the consumer is oriented technology. On the other hand, is the economic and psychological barriers associated with consumer brand choice decision. The aim is to minimize the buyer's use of brand substitution. User-oriented preservation techniques are used in this instrument. Buyer's cost technique is applied by the organization in a number of additional costs when buyer repackages one brand use to another because of the need to use additional tools for attracting new customers, so the organization is protected from the buyer of consumer goods exchange and reduced costs are incurred. Relationships with customers' equipment are related with a good organization and a customer relationship, which is always an added benefit. It creates trust space and the user becomes more loyal and more willing to spend. These days, insights is one of the latest management science paradigms that perhaps is the biggest focus on the quality of decisions. One of the forms of the insight related to the analysis involving competitors is a competitive intelligence. It is the basis of these insights, which can be implemented in high-quality solutions which create preconditions for the development of competitive advantage. According to Stalinsky, it can be said that any insight into the system has an ability to engage in the transfer of information between the external and internal environments to maintain stability, adaptability, and growth, providing insights into the concept. Competitive insight can be seen as an integral part of business intelligence, but it also can define the processes, techniques, and tools to help one quickly make more effective decisions. The competitive insight not only provides the facts, but also helps the organization to form assertions about what might happen in the future. The competitive insight combines data and information using a wide range of strategic approaches, paving the way for prediction and anticipation of future events. According to Evans, the competitive insight is good practice for helping to formulate a strategy and a better understanding of its scope and its competitors, helping to identify performance improvement areas which provide the potential risks and opportunities, isolate the operational efficiency of interference in relations with competitors. The general competitive strategies, according to Porter, are applied for a company to gain a sustainable competitive advantage. These strategies are the cost leadership, differentiation, concentration cost, and concentration of the differentiation. In cost leadership strategy, the company bases its activities on the resources that provide the lowest cost of the industry in which it operates. The ability to effectively manage the resources allows the company to achieve the lowest cost of their branch of activity and at the same time gain a sustainable competitive advantage. Cost leadership strategy requires a lot of attention to control costs and minimization. Cost minimization can be achieved due to economies of scale in production, that is, the production of standardized goods and increase in their production. A competitive advantage, offering consumers products at a lower price, is traditionally seen as the main way to advantage. Advantages of these strategies are the ones that allow getting more than the average profit industry, which may initiate a price war, and it feels quite safe to invest in other resources of the competitive advantage in the acquisition in order to increase market share. For the purposes of differentiation strategy, the company aims to any aspect of uniqueness. Most often, it is designed to differentiate the company's product offered to consumers who are perceived as unique. Differentiation essence is profit company receiving, creating customer value, which is different and higher than its competitors. One of the most important conditions necessary for a successful product differentiation is market segmentation and consumers' needs. Differentiation cannot be associated only with the characteristics of the goods, but must also include the entire enterprise and consumer relations complex, tangible and intangible aspects. The main drawback of this strategy is that the differentiation always increases the price. This leads to an increase in direct and indirect costs resulting from the inability to use the advantages of mass production as well as additional costs for different differentiation actions. In the case of concentration of costs and the concentration of the differentiation, the company's efforts focus on any aspects of the narrow field of competition within the industry, a consumer group, a specific product, or a specific geographic market. The purpose is to serve a certain market segment better than the competition. Gaining a competitive edge and standing out from the competitors may reduce or increase brand differentiation. These strategies are the advantages, and significant resources are not needed in order to establish themselves in a large segment of the market, which is a relatively small risk of minor potential losses in case of failure. The four divisions of competition are the argument of Cutler and Keller and their suggestion of competition strategies by market share for gaining a long-term competitive advantage. In market leadership strategies, the market leader has more freedom to choose their competitive strategy, as well as it is a lot easier to attract new customers and existing customers to take up their offer of products, advertising, and other marketing actions. The market leader therefore has more direct access to press and attack their competitors. In market strategy actor, the market enemy is strong enough and has the resources and expertise to become a leader. It can also increase the market share of directly attacking the chosen competitor, which is usually the leader. Like the market leader, it may be necessary to repel the attacks of competitors. However, other than the market leader, a persecutor can sometimes save resources and not create radically new products. With sufficient resources and expertise, it can take advantage of market leadership and ideas to create even more advanced products. In market follower, the market leader is operating in the marketing of goods, and the market follower copies this action. They come in two types. One takes main ideas and the sequence as a market leader in the footsteps of other who directly imitates everything related to the market leading product and marketing activities and tries to sell the goods on behalf of the leadership. All followers of the market have a common trait. They do not seek to occupy leadership positions but try to use tried and tested marketing efforts. And finally, in market niches filler, The most important goal is to compete, which is to adapt to the specific requirements of small segments of the market for consumers. Sales volumes for the target market of small size are usually not high, but the market niche filler often works very profitably. A market niches filler strategy is used by small businesses since large companies are not very interested in small segments of the market and do not try to meet their specific needs. The Judo strategy was proposed by Yok and Kwak as the result of their examination on why some companies manage to overcome their much stronger rivals. Under this strategy, the company has to rely on speed, agility, and adaptability of creative thinking. The development of strategies that impede the powerful leadership rivals, not allowing the competitors to use its full capacity. The company has to decide how aggressively it will enter the market, which is dominated by the other. A company managed by the Judo competitive strategy tries to conquer the entire market, and it also must expect that competitors will probably counterattack. However, the company may agree with its competitors to occupy only a small share of the market. Usually, this approach is justified as the market leader is more likely to give their small market share to a competitor than to reduce their prices in the market. Let us proceed now to the identification and development of competitive advantage. The first source of competitive advantage, which is usually specific organizations' strategic resources, is mentioned in works by Barney 1991 to 1997, arguing that the organization's strategic resources must be valuable, rare, unique, and consistent. Seklyukien 2008 also agreed with this statement and argued that the competitive advantage of the organization is strongly influenced by the acquisition of organizational resources. Organizational resources are necessary for an organization to gain a competitive advantage in the identification of particular relevance in different sectors of the economy. The resources of these are all the organization's assets, capabilities, organizational processes, organizational features, information, and knowledge. As it was stated by Barney, the entire organization's competitive strategy is influenced by the success of the organization's valuable resources and expertise that enable an organization to develop and implement strategies that are able to identify and exploit opportunities and neutralize threats to the environment. In each organization's competitive strategy, they draw attention on a special material at the organization's resources as a major competitive advantage in the identification, development, and factors determining the efficiency of the organization. These non-material resources of the organization, described as the organizational resources or the organization's strategic resources, highlight the importance of such intangible resources of organization and personal excellence. It is noted that organizations seeking a long-term competitive advantage rather than a short-term effect on the market pilot period of competitive advantage to be sustainable only if it possesses certain properties. These properties are called the competitive advantage VIO Model, which stands for valuable, rare, inimitable, and organization. Competitors cannot so easily copy to weaken or eliminate the advantages of the organization used. It was found that the organization's tangible and intangible resources enable organizations to easily beat their competition and achieve better business performance results of using a unique competitive strategy. The following points highlight the competitive advantage in the development of sources of competitive advantage through the development of market share growth, competition-based resources, dynamic capabilities, core competencies, and basic skills. In assessing the competitive advantage, it emphasizes that the critical success factor is the ability to transform the organization alone is not enough to develop certain skills, resources, and competencies required by the new forms of competition. The organization must learn to more effectively respond to strategic changes, keeping abreast of intensely competitive and rapidly changing environment. Talking about the competitive advantage, it distinguished 5 levels of factors that destroy the competitive advantage. First, imitation. Second, inertia. Third, optimization. Fourth, transformation. And fifth, paradigm inside the exchange. The competitive advantage destroys one of these factors over time. Boguslauskas and Vidara Vicien, 2009, provided enterprise core competencies and essential processes of identifying problems in order to create a competitive advantage. The competitive advantage does not include only the competitors and their positions, strategies or compare prices, benefits comparison, but also the knowledge, skills, technology, and working methods of information which are found in the smallest components of organizations. These additional factors are hidden and quite often misunderstood and therefore are not considered. In order to use these factors efficiently and to provide specific benefits to the organization, they should be thoroughly investigated. There has been much debate about the definition of core competencies, but most of the authors have had different opinions about it, so there is no unified definition. However, in order to create a competitive advantage to distinguish, it is necessary to evaluate the core competencies, which can be identified by the following characteristics. First, it is important that the customer perceive the benefit of the end product. Second, it is difficult for competitors to imitate. And third, it provides access to new markets. Essential competencies, on the other hand, are unique internal skills and knowledge sets that define the organization's competitive advantage and are used as the main competitive advantage of the company. Essential competencies are basically the knowledge, skills, collective learning, and other attributes of the collection, which helps to develop and maintain key processes. It is particularly emphasized that these essential processes should be hired because they are what helps the company to be lively and competitive. And that's the end of the report. Thank you for watching and listening.